the protocol already established by President Chansa. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. I'm sad that my Vice President is on his way from the Copper Belt now, but maybe within the next 5-10 minutes he'll be here. Yeah, so the members of NDC are here, the Secretary General, the Deputy Provincial Chair Lady, the MCCs, and also the district officials are here. My Vice President stays on the Copper Belt with other officials, and I made sure that they came today so that you see that the decision that we're making today is not just from me as the President of the party and the Lusaka officials, but Copper Belt, Lusaka, all over Zambia, we have made this decision together. And I'm sure you saw, some of you, that we did have our provincial conferences, and we're asking them in terms of the direction to take as a party. And this is a decision that we're announcing today as NDC. You know? Yes, so our decision as NDC is that we are going to rally behind the candidature of President Harry Kalaba. Which you who love good English, you like to say at endorsement. Yes. So, endorsement. Yes. And not only are we endorsing him, but we have come up with an alliance. Our alliance is called the Orange Alliance. And I'll repeat myself and add something I didn't add for first time. Amen. Our alliance is called the CF Orange Alliance. Because we are tired of forming alliances which won't appear on the ballot. Okay? An alliance name should be on the ballot. So we told ourselves, which is the best name? And we said, if you look at stability of political parties, if you look at credibility of leaders and everything, we have a David amongst us. Because the sad part about leadership sometimes and presidencies in this country, you find that when you come together as opposition, everybody wants to be on top. Are you getting the point? And that is where we have missed it over and over and over again. You know, it's simple. When you come together, you say, what is your strength? What is your strength? What is your advantage? You put together the comparative advantages of everybody else and you say, yes, we are all aspiring for this, but at this moment in time, this our friend here has done it better and has moved more than all of us. And some of you who followed, even the mother of alliances when it was born, the first alliance after 2021, when we formed the United Quarter Alliance, UKA, it was the same spirit we were in, some of us. And I'm sure you saw that in that alliance, I think it was only President Chas and I who did not aspire. And we said, we all want to be presidents. That is why we are presidents of our political parties. Are you getting the point? Yeah. But who has moved further than all of us? This is the man. And by the way, even people that did not agree with us at that time, now they agree with us. Now they agree. It's so sad that it had to take the breaking of a beautiful thing as beautiful as Oka. Yes. You get the point? As beautiful as that. But again, we remember to say the government made sure that Uka was never registered. So it became a very big problem. other alliances also which have been formed after that. The government has made sure also to do all sorts of mingarato. So we said, let us form an alliance that will take us to the 13th and win these elections. So this alliance is just a start. We are calling upon all political parties to come and join this alliance. And when I talk about the stability of political parties, I am not insulting anyone or being disrespectful, because NDC is one of those that was hammered badly by this current regime. Okay? Even the president here, you remember, all of you were in DP, you had to move from DP to Citizens First. Because NDC and DP were the first two parties that were hammered badly by this regime, you know. And I remember when President Kalaba was saying, you know what, I think I need to leave this and form something else. I said, oh, President, you can't do that, you can't do that, you know, I need to do this. Good decision he made. And then for me, I said, yeah. Then for me, I told him, I will remain in NDC and fight them. Because, and they brought in all sorts of people. From 2021 to now, the people that they paraded as presidents, they've had 6 presidents. I have been the only true president of NDC from my side. 1 president. 1. Why? Because it's the law of the party that we are following. But they've brought all sorts of people. For some of you that even watched the ECZ meeting 2 weeks ago, I stood up, I said I was president. Some mashed potatoes also stood up and introduced themselves as presidents of NDC. But
good evening, Zambia, and welcome to Spotlight. Tonight, the political chessboard has just seen an interesting shift. Lines are being drawn, colors are being born, and today, a new alliance has just been born. Indeed, said in a move that has stunned many, NDC President Saboi Imboela and RDC's Robert Chance have officially endorsed Season's first President Harry Kalaba under the newly formed alliance, Orange Alliance. But as we look towards the 2026 election, the question still remains, is this a genuine alternative for the Zambian people or just a tactical survival kit for the opposition? My name is Alfred Chimba.
And my name is Saidlis Nkonjara. And tonight, we're not just looking at the alliances, changing. The rules of the game have equally changed. With the enactment of Bill number 7, the parliamentary seats have increased from 156 to 226. There is also a new arrangement, the mixed member proportional representation, which guarantees women representation.
Joining us on the Spotlight this episode is Madam Saboi Imboela. She's the president of NDC. Madam Imboela, welcome to Spotlight and good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
We're right. We're right. How are you?
Okay. I'm okay. Thank you so much.
Your decision today, Madam President, has had the country buzzing, and it wasn't expected that something of this magnitude would come on a day like today. But it has happened, and our questions and the questions that Zambian people are asking is why this alliance, the Orange Alliance? Why President Harry Kalaba? There's so many opposition leaders out there and so many alliances. Why choose President Harry Kalaba and, the Orange Alliance?
Well, the reason is very, very simple, really. If you look at President Harry Kalaba, he has the right credentials to run this country. He was in government before, first as a civil servant, then a minister, I think he was lands minister at some point, and then became a foreign affairs minister. And, ministries are not the same, really. I always tell people to say, when you look at that calendar or that list of the president and the ministers, that is a hierarchy of ministers. So foreign affairs minister ranks very high on the list, so he was in government at that level, so he does have that government experience, and more than that, he has also the right connections, because running for presidency you need to have an international flair. You need to have the connections right out there to ensure that you're able to raise resources. So having said that, I can tell you for a fact that he ticks almost all the boxes. He ticks the boxes. We are so many presidents, I can tell you that, but you find that sometimes you have a problem, sometimes being running the party because you don't have funding yet. You get the point. So the people have not come on board, and you may be facing certain challenges despite having the certain credentials. You see, so like I said, even today when we're announcing this alliance, the fact that it's been able to run, because sometimes a leadership, you can call it a race. You're running towards a certain goal. So you look at yourselves to say, among us ourselves, who has run further? We're all running towards this goal. But who has run further than us we can put in front of us? Zambia has got over 87 registered political parties. And in terms of actively participation, maybe you can count not less than 10 that actively participate. And Citizens First is one of those political parties that is always actively participating. From 2021 to now, we have seen them being almost on all ballots when it comes to by-elections. So when they were doing that, they were busy selling themselves. I always tell people to say that participating in an election is not only about winning, sometimes about selling yourself. So despite having won, I think, one councillor or so, they participated almost in all the by-elections, thereby selling themselves in almost all parts of this country. So they've done that. So in terms of preparedness as a political party, and as a presidential candidate, I think President Harry Kalaba has really done so much, because don't forget, when we're running for these elections, we do have the incumbent President HH himself. You get the point? So just don't want anybody just going in and say, this is a person that we're pitting against this person who'll be like our front runner. We need somebody who's got muscle. So for me, he is that person who's got muscle, at least to battle it out with the current person who's there now.
All right.
With this endorsement, Madam President, I believe that there are many speculations already. And are you in active discussions with President Harry Kalaba regarding running mate slot?
Definitely. And I did announce, actually, even today when we were making the announcement, to say I'm actually not even the running mate, because the problems that we've had as alliances are people fighting for positions more than anything else, okay? No wonder we decided to say, by the time we'll be having an alliance, announcing an alliance, we should have a flag bearer there and then, so that people know to say this is the direction that these people have taken. So that if anybody wants to join the CF Orange Alliance, they should know that this is a presidential candidate that we have. So had I gone to be the running mate, we could have closed the door. They could have said, this side, there's number one, there's number two. But just to demonstrate to the Zambians to say, this is in the spirit of us coming together. We need to be selfless to ensure that we create a formidable team. So I am certainly not going to be the running mate. We are open. And by the way, apart from political parties forming alliances, we see that in other countries, especially Kenya right now, they normally have alliances of alliances. You get the point? So the way we have the CF Orange Alliance right now, as we get to August, we may actually end up having an alliance with another alliance. You get the point? So when you do that and you've got certain spaces that you have left out, you find that you can co-opt other people. And because maybe it's an alliance and this and another alliance, we have a running mate, they become number two, or things like that, okay? The sad part, of course, now people are paying their nomination fees. So, it depends on how soon people get together and make certain decisions. But to cut the long story short, we can have alliances of political parties coming together, but later on, even just alliances, forming alliances. No wonder I've made it very, very clear that I'm not the running mate, so that we leave room for people to come in and see where they can fit themselves in this alliance.
Now, you've been, a fierce critic of the New Dawn administration, even though sometimes you do commend them on a few things. Why then not get into an alliance with the UPND? Was this, option on the table? And if it was not on the table, is this relationship then with the CF Orange Alliance a relationship of anything but HH?
Yes, the option actually to be with the UPND Alliance has always been there. I worked with the UPND, so they know what I'm capable of doing, So if there are people that have always been there from 2021 to now, telling me to work together, it's definitely them, But I think I know what I want for this country. And the UPND have failed to govern this country the way they should. if they were able to run this country in a certain way that I was happy with, trust me, I'd be with them right now. Because if you look at NDC in 2021, NDC was basically split in about 3 places. We had people that went to the PF with our former president, Dr. Chishimba Kambwili. We had people that went with our former vice president, Mr. Kafumba, and people that remained with me in NDC to say, we don't want to be swallowed by UPND or PF, let's be here together, okay? So some people that went to UPND with Mr. Kafumba, they realized what we had been telling them to say, by UPND was Zura. When you go there, you'll find that you don't have space. Because when we left the UPND Alliance in 2021, they wanted to swallow us and we refused to do that, you know. So the people that allowed to be swallowed went there. But later on, they came back very fast to say, no, this side, it's very hot this side. Are you getting the point? But by that time, for us, we had moved a step further, you know. So they kept on insisting to say, let's reconcile. And from 2021 to now, their request was always for us to reconcile. And we'd talk, you know, we would negotiate one, rather discuss a few things here and there. But we always hit a deadlock when we said, okay, by then we're in UCA, for example, say, but as we're in UCA and they're in the UPND Alliance, so if we get back together, which alliance do we respect or do we follow? And they would say, no, but as we're in the UPND Alliance and we're in the ruling party, so come on our side. And I would always say no. So that is the only thing that made us not to unite. Even Mr. Kafumba himself, you know, I never like to talk about private discussions, but I will say this. Even Mr. Kafumba, when he was fired or relocated, whatever you might call it, from the Ministry of Home Affairs, he came to see me, you know, just like his people were coming. Mr. Stula, also the one who was sent into Nigeria as into diplomatic service, and everybody, just the whole of that team came to see me to say, can we unite? And I remember that time Mr. Kafumba saying that these people are telling me to get back and be their president and everything. But, you know, I don't want this thing of president here, president there. Why can't we work together? You get the point. But yet again, even with the team of Mr. Kafumba and others, still the deadlock was on which alliance do we follow. So for me, being part of the UPND Alliance has always been there. But I've always said being part of the UPND Alliance is not an option. And when I went back to my team, the Central Committee of the NDC, to say, how do we move on this? Everybody rejected. So we're all in the same spirit, on the same page to say we are better off being in the opposition than aligning with a political party in government that has failed, to meet the promises, to do the promises that promised the Zambians. So it's not about leadership for ourselves, our own benefits, but ensuring that the Zambians get what they deserve from the government.
You've labeled this current administration as a failed administration based on the promises that they've made. But let's look at the specific failures in this regard. What specific failures in his first term as president, Hichilema, has he failed, and that you feel that he's not eligible to run this country for the next 5 years again?
Well, I think it's not even a matter of asking why. In what areas has failed, but in what areas has he not failed? Okay, because I think he has failed in everything. Because even in good things that he has done, like free education, okay, great policy, which I can tell you for a fact that even the NDC and now working together in the CF Alliance is one policy that we really, really treasure and will certainly continue. Very good policy. But look at the implementation, when education is free, it's not free for everyone. Somebody has to pay for it. And in this case, it's government. You get the point. Government has committed to say education has to be free for the parents, but to pay for it. So you increase your allocation for education. So they put education free, but not giving the education sector the necessary money or resources that they deserve. Move around in these schools. You're going to find that, number one, they're not learning and teaching materials. Number two, there are no desks. Number three, simple things like soap, they don't have. You get the point? Those little PTA funds and everything that they would charge those days, the 20 kwacha, 100 kwacha there. They used to buy soaps, toilet paper and everything for the schools to just run, okay? It's a disaster now when you move around the country, especially in the rural places. So meaning that even a good thing like that, it has been messed up because education has to be free, but quality education. There's one saying that President H likes to say himself, which is education is an equalizer. Okay, great quotation. I always quote him so much on that. And for real, education is an equalizer. That is why he would tell you to say, I moved from Monze. I think he says he never washes until grade 4, something like that. He went to University of Zambia, went abroad, and look at him now. Okay, a lot of our parents, they were in the rural parts of this country, had a good education, came to Lusaka, had the kind of jobs they had. Are you getting the point? The University of Zambia students used to call UNZA at that time as Intercontinental Hotel. Okay, go to UNZA right now. Simple toilets they don't have, so I want to belabor the point of the toilets and the sanitation, because I think it's too fresh. They had to close even the university because of the kind of sanitation which is there. The same school which they called Intercontinental. Namibia last year declared that they were going to have a free education from grade 1 to university. They said they'll give it a year, so they declared it last year and they started this year. But with President AJ, it was just like free education, and then are you getting the point? And in as much as they promised free education from grade 1 to university, they have started grade 1 to 12, which is good because they're starting from somewhere, but the only problem is just the quality education. We want good quality education for our learners.
A number of opposition leaders have made this argument that the quality of education is not to the standard that you would wish for. But we also ask the question, what is better, that children are in homes or that they are in school? And also the Ministry of Education did indicate an increase in the number of pupils that are now attending school, but also an increase in the pass rate as well after this free education policy that you termed to not be good enough. What exactly do you expect this administration, or did you expect the administration to have done in its implementation of this free education that is different from what they have done already?
Like I said, the issue of just allocation of funds, because for school to run, they need money, And by the way, it's the disparity is actually very shocking. There's now very low quality education, but the pass rate went very high this year. Or the children that wrote last year. The UPND likes to run this country on propaganda. I don't know if you have had time to talk to 2-3 teachers. If you haven't, do that, both of you, and even the people watching me now. Get a phone or ask any teacher, especially the people that are teaching grade 12s and everything. Ask them to say, the children passed a lot this year. What happened? They are shocked. They don't even know what happened as well. And they are saying children passed a lot, especially in mathematics. The teachers don't know what happened. Because what the teachers are telling you is that because of the high number of children in classes, they fail to mark the children's books. Are you getting the point? So the whole term, okay, for mathematics teachers especially, they'll tell you to say the whole term, I can't even mark. When children write exercises in class, we tell them to exchange books. They exchange books and they mark themselves. So the quality of education has really gone down. So with that scenario, how then did the children pass like that? Are you getting the point? So with the UPND, because they knew to say, we were complaining to say, this is what you're doing, they wanted to bring out something whereby now there's an argument. So no, the passing rate has gone high. The teachers don't know what has happened. So for me, this is a challenge I'm giving you and everybody watching this program right now to say, engage any teacher that you know from a government school and ask them to say, the passing rate went high. You hear what they're going to tell you.
Your solution to this, free education problem is more allocation to the education sector. Is more money going to sort out these problems that you're highlighting? And how is more money going to be the solution?
When you allocate more money, it means that you're going to buy learning and teaching materials, right? You're going to buy desks. Children are going to sit on the desk, not on the floor. You're going to build more schools. You're going to build more classroom blocks. Because now with the CDF of the UPND, you just hear 1x3 classroom blocks and everything. The reason why the UPND was able to employ more teachers when they got into office was because the PEF had built so many schools. So what they should have done was to continue building more schools and employing more teachers. But they came in and they could not do that. Zambia, for now, which is one area of interest to me, has too many teenage pregnancies and marriages. Okay, one of the reasons why that is like it is like that is because if you go in most of these rural places, you're going to find that children are walking long distances to the nearest school. So there's an advent of the so-called weekly boarding houses. So they're staying alone in a small hut. You have 10, 15 girls staying there. you know. So the men that live around those places begin to abuse the girls, because when they buy the girls soap, Vaseline, a little lotion here and there, they do all sorts of things to the girls. You get the point? Before you know it, grade 5s, grade 6, 7, 10, 11, they're falling pregnant, But if we were to build more boarding schools as Zambia, these children will be in secure boarding houses where they have that guardianship of the teachers and everything, that strictness, not where they're living alone in these small houses, they're struggling to survive and things like that. So we are really, really not being fair to our children. But like I said earlier on, the free education policy was a good one. So we have to build on that. I don't want to see a situation whereby we have policy reversal, because one of the problems that Zambia has had is the issue of policy reversal, okay? Whichever government comes in, they want to show as if their previous friends did not do much, and then they have to reverse everything they have done. For me, what I'm saying is that the UPND have done good in this. Let's build on it when it comes to free education. The problem, however, things, for example, like health, we have seen the disaster that has been there when it comes to the procurement of medicines, when it comes to the issues of medicine just not being there in hospitals and whatever. Things like that have to really, really be worked on. It had to take the American ambassador to come out and say, a lot of these medicines that we're donating to you, we're finding them on the streets. They called for 39 meetings as he reviewed on that press conference, until finally came out as an ambassador to review what was going on. And that's when they acted. So why not just act? You have a donor coming to you to complain, to say this is what is going on in your government. Why not do what it is that they are doing until he comes out? I get in the point. So for me, we really need to do a lot of citizen participation.
Okay.
Yeah, I always tell people to say good governance has a lot of tenets like transparency, accountability, and participation being one of them. Because democracy is not a spectator sport. When you are watching a football, okay, if today I'm going to decide to go watch football at Hero Stadium, as a spectator, you sit maybe in get D, get E to watch, okay? Democracy is not like that. It is not a spectator sport. In the case of democracy, if you're going to go into that stadium, you won't be in get D watching. You have to be on the pitch playing the game. So participation is a key component of good governance and democracy. And the UPND is really, really so intolerant. So they're failing to hear what the citizens are saying to them.
Madam President, let's look at, your alliance, which is the CF Orange Alliance. And I believe a lot of Zambians would want to know your agenda. Is your agenda just, or maybe your desire to only remove President Hakainde Hichilema? Or what is your agenda, your top-notch must do on your agenda?
First and foremost, I normally see even on Facebook when people say, your agenda should not just be to remove Wechech. Well, that's number one on the agenda. It has to be removed, okay? Because for us to do what we need to do, we need to remove him. So number one on the agenda, we remove him. Then number two, we have now to implement our manifesto, okay? By the way, today, having launched the CF Orange Alliance, we'll call you soon as the media to come and look at our manifesto and the things that we're talking about in the manifesto. One of the things that we're talking about in the manifesto is the issue of where even the whole name of Orange Alliance comes in. Are you getting the point? We got orange from the orange that we have on the Zambian flag. And we all know that orange on the Zambian flag means minerals, okay? Zambia is endowed with a lot of minerals. Wherever you step these days, there are minerals. You get the point? But look at what has happened to our minerals under the UPND. There are mines everywhere. There are minerals everywhere. But Zambia is becoming more poorer. In terms of taxation, it's a disaster. In terms of citizen participation in their economic activities, the other side of participation, it has been very poor. Look at what happened in Mufumbwe. Look at what happened in Mwinilunga. Total disaster. You have to have a plan to ensure that your citizens also benefit. Like President Michael Sata used to say, Zambia just gave us one land. He's not making more lands, okay? So this is a land of our forefathers that God gave us. So in this Zambia of ours, we do have a lot of minerals that each and every Zambian can benefit from. But they give tax holidays, to the big mining corporations, and they don't have a plan, for the small scale miner in the country. You get the point? They just don't have a plan for the Zambians. The UPND is an elitist party. That is why you have seen that even their adoption right now, they've pegged it for 7.5 for a woman to apply. That is internal processes, the intra-party democracy in terms of their nomination. It's 7.5 for a woman, 10,000 kwacha for a man to apply non-refundable fee. Are you getting the point? Yeah, even as late as they said 2016 and before that, they had a fee as high as 5,000 kwacha. So they have always been like that. It is not a proper party. So the same policies they have internally, whereby it's all about money to them, they've brought it to the Zambians. The Zambians right now need to benefit from their resources. Zambians don't have money, okay? Zambians are very, very hardworking people. So us as the Orange Alliance, we are saying, these are our minerals and we have to benefit from them. Number two, there has to be value addition for our minerals and other resources, of course, because when you sell things in their raw form, you can't really maximize much, okay? If we go to copper, for example, Zambia exports copper. I think we're the second largest copper exporter. Is it in Africa or the whole world? I think Africa. And yet, look at how much we're making from our copper and also how we are selling it. We keep on selling copper in its raw form. Why not make even just copper wires, because raw copper is sold cheaply, but you buy back copper wires expensively, so it's important that we move in a direction whereby there's value addition on whatever it is that we do. So industrialization is key on our program.
NDC, CF merging, Madam, don't you think that obviously Zambians or some Zambians are going to have all these questions because you're coming from different parties with different ideologies and whatnot, that, we're going to see a situation where you find yourself in intra-party wrangles and obviously drag the country into autopilot? Shouldn't we be worried that there will be such a time? How solid is your friendship? Is your partnership?
Our friendship and partnership is very, very solid. Okay. And I'm very shocked. People think I'm the vice president who was the person who was the vice president, President Kalaba once, the one who did all those Mingara in DP, which he left to form the Citizens First. So people are saying they have reconciled. You get the point?
You're definitely not Judith Kabemba.
I am not Judith Kabemba. People need to understand that. You get the point? I'm very shocked to see that social media think I am her. Others were even saying, after she chased him from NDC, now is President Kalaba and I have always enjoyed a very good friendship. I remember when he left DP and formed Citizens First, and then they had Orange. I remember in NDC they were like, President, you are friends with President Kalaba. Why have they gotten Orange and everything? And I remember joking to say, no, don't worry, we have an alliance in future. We'll be Orange Alliance since we are both using orange color. I get the point. So I was saying that in the party. When we formed the United Kwacha Alliance, because of the orange colors that we had, we'd call ourselves Orange Alliance within the United Kwacha Alliance. And so it was like President Kalaba, even President Silaway, President Robert Chance, and the four of us had orange as our color. And then funny enough, the PF and FDD had green. So I'd even say, you would jokingly say, these are the Green Alliance. You see, so I think it's spiritual, and it just had to happen like this. So getting back to the friendship, I think the friendship is solid, and we understand also what it is that we need to do for this country. That is why if you look at even UKA itself, we were very, very deliberate, and also we had made up our minds, President Chance and I, for example, to say this is the best candidate that we had in Oka. So when there were all those Mingalatos in Oka that the elections were sabotaged and everything, when President Kalaba left, if the public remembers, we ended up supporting somebody who left the alliance instead of the people that were inside. Because we said, how do you chase away the best candidate that we have? I get in the point. So we've been very consistent with that to say President Harry Kalaba has done enough to be considered the flag bearer. It shouldn't be the case that everybody wants to just be on top and everything. So to cut the long story short, in terms of friendship, in terms of also strength and also confidence in what it is that he can do, I think President Robert Chance and I do have that confidence in him to say this is the right person. And by the way, there's also an issue of UPND doing Mingaratos on all political parties. I've mentioned the issue of them doing what they did to DP, to the point whereby the DP had to leave that party and form another one. They've done the same to NDC. They've done the same to many political parties.
Why should you always
So,
blame it, or maybe the blame should be on the UPND when all these, Imingala to fall in these political parties, especially in opposition?
Haven't you noticed that all the people that cause confusion in these political parties are part of the UPND alliance? They are part of the UPND alliance. And also sometimes even where they have their press conferences, they have them at Longacres Lodge, which is a government lodge. Today, if I went to government lodge and I said I want to have a presser as NDC, they won't allow it. So those people that are being allowed to have press conferences there and doing what it is that they're doing to some of us as the opposition, who's sponsoring them and who's supporting them. So it's as simple as that. And sometimes also when they start their Mingalato, they normally have that government support. You find somebody who was just moving along the day before you know it, they've got 5-6 policemen escorting them, and you're thinking, why would the police escort this person? So it's really, really obvious. But most importantly, there was an audio which leaked at some point. You remember that audio of Mr. Kafumba and the political advisor to the president? It was clear in the audio. So if you've forgotten what it is they said in the audio, listen to the audio again. It was very, very clear that the agenda was to destabilize political parties. And more than that, by the way, they've gone further to destabilize political parties using the resource societies. If you go to resource societies, most of our political parties, despite the fact that we have conventions or we have meetings, we have whatever, you take the updated records of resource societies, they won't do anything. You get the point? Mm-hmm. Because the political party is run from the central committee and not the resource societies. But now they have changed the entire system, and it's almost as if a political party has to be run from there. And they have all sorts of funny things that they are doing that it would have to take another program just for us to sit and explain what is going on there.
There's an issue to do with ego. To be blunt, why can't the entire opposition join hands and work together? Is the fragmentation currently in the opposition a result of clashing policies, or just too many leaders who all want to be the ego at the table?
Sometimes we don't know what is going on, the ego certainly is too much, okay? I always say that we actually have to thank President HH because he's the one person that is bringing the opposition together. Are you getting the point?
How are you together when there's so many alliances? Just today, another one has been born, and you're getting to an election in 2021. All of you are claiming popularity. Are you not scared you're going to split the vote with so many alliances?
No, I'm not scared because President HH will continue bringing us together, okay? After 2021, the opposition were in all sorts of places. You have no idea that when the UPND started arresting the opposition leaders, they started reconciling. Some of those reconciliations would happen at those police stations you would see us at. People are arrested and everything, and you go and see the person who has been arrested. So reconciliation was happening. Even now, the opposition on their own have demonstrated a lot of selfishness, a lot of ego, a lot of all those things whereby they don't want to support one person or 3 people, whatever it is. Everybody wants to be president. But President HH, besides, I won't even say much what he's doing because they may start doing the opposite. But one thing I would say is that they are clamping down on a number of political parties. So when they do that, people will be forced to work together. So even where people have resolved not to work together, but because their political parties are being hammered, they have no choice but work together. So no wonder I'm saying that President HH is the #1 person that is bringing opposition unity in this country. He has united the opposition more than any opposition political party leader has done. Are you getting the point? So we need to thank him for that, and we're going to see after the nomination just how much he will go to unite the opposition. Because in case people have not noticed, when it comes to nominations of presidential candidates, when you go for your nomination, there and then they should tell you whether they've qualified or not. We are seeing where they want to do that once you, what is this? If you look at the electoral process bill, once you file in your nomination, you have to wait for 4 days, okay, to know whether you qualified or not. What kind of process is that? Using that 4 days, they want to disqualify people. What they should do is just to allow people to get nominations so that if they don't qualify, they leave it, In the past, just the nomination process itself would take about 20, 30 minutes. Somebody's out when you're having a by-election, let's say at MP or councillor level. But right now, a simple by-election at MP or councillor level, you find that you go in one part, it's 1 hour, 30 minutes, 2 hours. That's what was happening even at Chawama during the Chawama by-elections and other by-elections. It has become such a hassle just to have the nomination process, which is very, very shocking because so many years after Zambia's independence, systems are supposed to be improving and not worsening the way they are worsening.
Well, is it not better for the Electoral Commission of Zambia to be thorough in the way they, interrogate these candidates and also do due diligence to avoid legal situations that may, to some extent derail elections?
They've always been thorough. They've always been thorough. Nomination, what is the nomination process? It's all about checking the qualifications for a candidate, right? Do you have a grade 12 certificate? Yes, they look at grade 12 certificate. Has it been certified by ECZ? Yes, ECZ. Are you a voter? They get your voter's card. Yes. Do you have 15 supporters that have come from your constituency? They check if those people are appearing. It's a very short process. I get your point. Very, very short process. But for them, they go further to say, who has signed this adoption certificate? Is it the SG who's appearing at the resource societies or not? Okay. They started doing all those mingaratos because they wanted to bar the PF. But with that now, it has spilled over to everybody else. Because what they would do is that when the PF went with an adoption certificate, they would refuse it because they wanted an adoption certificate that was only signed by Chabinga and Ngona. So you saw that the other time when I think Honorable Nakachinda signed an adoption certificate, they refused. President Lungu, they refused. I know that the leadership movement, when the president himself, Dr. Silombe, signed an adoption certificate, they refused it. They had to go back to an SG who had defected from the party, okay, to go sign the adoption certificate. Only when that person signed, that's the one they accepted. Our political parties right now have people that have left the political parties or they have been expelled. Others have even died. The Resolve Societies is refusing to remove those people from the list of office bearers. I'll give you an example of NDC. The first Secretary General we had when the party was formed is Mr. Mwenyam Senge. He's still appearing on the list of office bearers for the NDC. He has had to go back to ECZ himself to say, you know what, I left this party a long time ago, okay? He left and he has formed his own party. And he wrote to ECZ in 2022, together with Mr. Kafumba, the time that Mr. Kafumba was being appointed as PS Home Affairs. They wrote to say these two people should be removed. They removed Mr. Kafumba, they left Mr. Mwenyam Senge. Okay? Mr. Charles Kabwita, who left NDC, went to UPND, now he's with PF. He's still on the list of office bearers for the NDC. There's a man called Mr. Chewe. He left NDC together with Mr. Mwenyam Senge. He became the Secretary General for Mr. Mwenyam Senge's political party. In 2021, he stood on the SP as an MP in Chimwemwe, and he came back and he said, I'm the only person who is allowed to sign an adoption certificate in NDC. The person was a district chairperson for Kitwe. And he went to the police and even reported me to say, Saboi should not have signed the adoption certificate for the candidate in Chawama because I'm the only person that should sign. And based on that, the police came and brought a call out at my place. I went to the police. They even issued the warrant caution. I get in the kind of problems that we have in this country.
Is that part of the reason why you are not taking part in this election as NDC? Because you do not have control of who is going to sign adoption certificates?
Not necessarily that, because it's a matter of me just going to some people who are on the list to sign.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, that was what I was going to use as a strategy. I can say it now because we're not going to participate as NDC. Before I wouldn't have said it on TV, but now I can say it because we won't really participate as NDC. But the idea was always to go back to the same people appearing there. So they sign. Since those are the ones who they're recognizing. Like I said, Mr. Mwenyam Senge has his own party. There's also Madam Bridget Atanga who left NDC. So not only did she leave NDC, she left politics. She's somebody that I'm in touch with. We talk like all the time. One of my biggest supporters, actually. She calls me all the time. Oh, you're a strong woman. We support you. We need more women like you. A strong woman and mother that I really, really love to hear from all the time. I was talking to her even yesterday. So for me, the strategy was that had we stood as NDC, I could have just simply gone to Madam Atanga and said, please, can you sign all the adoption certificates? And then stood.
Madam
So we are
President, yes.
supporting CF only because really they're the best.
Let's look at the fragile coalitions, and when we look at the Zambian history, we understand that alliances in the past have died after the first election. If the Orange Alliance loses this August, are we going to see it disband, or is this a long-term project?
It is a long-term project. You can have an electoral pact, by the way, if you want. An electoral pact is more short-term, you get the point, right? Where you say, let's come together for the sake of these elections. We go together into 2026 as one coalition and stuff like that. Or you can say, let's have an alliance so that even when 2026 elections are over, we still work together. Because we want to work together with the CF, even in Parliament, even in the council chambers. Because I see CF getting members of Parliament this year. There are many people, by the way, that you see very soon that will announce that have come on the CF ticket. Of course, you have seen a good number of people. You have seen Vangwena Vilio, you people in the media, you have seen your friend, you have seen Madam Maureen Nkandu, and many others, Mr. Stanley Mohango, all those people that have joined the CF. There are many big weights, heavyweights also, that have been part of this conversation, and very soon you will see. So I know for a fact that CF will have some members of Parliament come August. You get the point?
Yeah.
So we need to continue our working relationship in such a way that as we get into Parliament and council chambers, we're still able to look at the common interests and work together to help develop this country.
You've described, I don't know, maybe you've called President Harry Kalaba as Moses. And I think this, you're not the first one, but in your context, what do you mean he's the Moses of Zambia? What does that mean in that context?
Okay, Moses also is good, but I called him a David.
David, actually, yes.
I called him a David. A David, because of everything that is going on, people don't know who's going to win, okay? People are saying, no, President H is going to win because of ABCD and ABCD. David, as he came to the battle, I think he was undermined. Oh, where is this boy coming from in that regard? You get the point. I know he can't really do this. And he shocked people because he won that battle. I see President Harry Kalaba as that person, okay, that will really shock those people that are not seeing what some of us are seeing. Are you getting the point? So he's ready. And for me also, because I believe there's a soul in government right now, So I have this soul who, when the Lord kept on denying him to be president of this country 5 times, the Zambians cried and said, this is a person that we want. So God was like, okay. What people normally say, the permissive will of God. Oh, okay, this is what you want. So God gave us a bonzo.
So it's given you Harry Kalaba.
God gave us a bonzo in Saul, who we have right now. But now a David is coming, who is going to be the perfect will of God to say, my children, I will liberate you, and here's a president from my heart.
You've been a strong advocate for women to participate in the governance of this country over the years. And the UPND administration had pushed to Parliament a bill, Bill 7, which now is law and guarantees at least 20 seats for women in Parliament. And also there are 15 for youths and 5 for persons with disabilities. What is your, take on this particular law that the country has now?
It is a good thing. And that is why for me, even when Bill 7 was being debated, before, during, and after, I came out very clear to say, Bill 7 is not so much about the content, but the process. And like they say, the content, the process rather protect the process protects the content. So the way they came out, Bill 7 was not people driven. The UPND just came out and said that we need constitutional amendments, and we're going to amend constitutions. The constitution based on ABCD articles, you get the point. So that was very, very disrespectful to us as Zambians. So some of us criticized them on that. But we sat down and we came out to the media, and I was very, very clear to say, despite this, there are good things in here like delimitation, there are good things like a PR. There are good things also like the issue of nominations of candidates. Maybe one person resigns and everything, and you start all over again, and people have to pay all the amounts of money and things like that. So I didn't like that. So I was saying PR is good because if you look at all the countries in Africa that are doing well in terms of women representation, they do have proportional representation. as the electoral system. Okay, so I was always clear with that. So it's a good thing. However, yet again, like everything else that the UPND is doing, even with the good thing, they just have a way of just messing it up. Proportional representation, the way it should operate in its pure form, you should have candidates standing, and when you finally count, when you count the number that a political party has gotten from across the country, from all its citizens, that's a number now that you use to allocate seats, proportional to the percentage of votes that have gotten in the national elections, But what the UPND has done, because they believe that a lot of their MPs and councillors are going to lose, but the president will win, they have taken proportional representation and put it on the presidential vote. Okay? So meaning that whatever the presidential candidates will get, that's the 40 seats that the women, the youth, and persons with disabilities will be sharing. But even with that, they'll be very, very shocked. Okay, they'll be very, very shocked. That is why, even as a matter of strategy, I've heard people say, "No, opposition, come together, come together." I hate talking about strategies on TV, but some of these things I'll tell them so that people see that the opposition are not just sitting there thinking. Okay, people say, "Everybody come together." Number one, it's not good in a democracy. Number two, it's not possible because we are dealing with a brutal autocratic regime. For me, I believe strong candidates should stand in these elections from the opposition. President Harry Kalaba being one of them. So when President Harry Kalaba stands, another candidate from this alliance stands. If we can have maybe even two or three strong candidates standing, I'll be very okay with that. President HH maybe can even win the first round or not. So maybe somebody fails to get 50% plus one, then we go into the rerun. Are you getting the point?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Zambians, since time when we embraced democracy and the multi-party democracy, have never had a one-term president. We have always voted either 2 terms, for presidents to finish their terms. Why do you want to remove President Hakainde Hichilema now, with him only having ruled for 5 years, and you also know how governance works and how development works? Sometimes 5 years might just not be enough. That's why the law also gives a president 2 terms maximum. Why now, and why not after 10 years, to see where the policies of the UPNG are going to take the country?
A good president can work even in just 1 term. When Mandela served his term, 27 years in prison, when he came out, he ruled for only 1 term. He did his part and he left. You get the point. George Washington in America, where the 2 terms limit comes from, he only wanted to serve for 1 term. After he became the first American president, he served for 1 term. And after the term, he was like, "Oh no, I've done my part, I'm going." And he did do so much in 1 term. They cried, they forced him to say, "Mr. President, please, we want you to continue." So he heard them, he continued. He did 2 terms. Again, they went back. When the 2 terms finished, because he was such a good president, and he demonstrated that just in 1 term. Second term, again, they went for him and they said, "Please," the Americans begged for him to continue, and he refused. He said, 10 years, 2 terms is enough for me to do what I've done. So this is my gift to you. And he left. So meaning that a president who's serious can do what they can in just 1 term. No wonder America normally has even the first 100 days. You get the point? They capture things from the first 100 days. Then the first, 6 months and first 1 year, things like that. Because development is a daily thing. Are you getting the point? So for somebody to say, you have to have more years, it's because they're failures. I have heard rumors from within the UPND where they're saying they even want to remove the presidential term limit. Okay? Because if you're popular, you're popular. Why not say for more than 2 terms? No, it's undemocratic. You get the point? Indeed. Zambia is too big. Right. And also, if you're a leader, create more leaders. A leader does not create followers. You create more leaders. And coming to the issue of Zambia is also having served more than 2 terms. The first political party, UNIP, ruled for 27 years, right? MMD 20. So it was getting down, right? 27, 20, PF 10. So UPND is 5 years. This is a one-term government. So
And
once
what
we
would be-
remove
and what
them,
would be CF and the Orange Alliance if we are getting down?
we remove them, then we start afresh. You get the point?
All right, let's have a
Start
look
afresh.
at our inbox
Yeah.
quickly. We only have about 3 minutes before we wind up and see what you are saying. We'll read only a few messages as time may not be allowing.
This one says, good evening, the panel. Miss Imboela is not saying the truth. Schools are given grants for things she's talking about. The problem with politicians, they don't want to say the truth. Okay, there's no name, but thank you so much for that text. We're reading the messages raw as they come. And send us a text as well. The number is on your screen. We do have Madam President Imboela. So it says UPND has succeeded in the education sector. Desks are being delivered. The 70% pass rate is an indicator. Please remind Miss Imboela that a lot has been achieved in education. Okay. All right. So those are some of the messages. Maybe we can accommodate a few calls
All right,
and hear what
let's-
the people are saying this evening.
Hello, good evening. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. What is your name and where are you calling us from?
My name is Frederick from Chawam.
Frederick, we are grateful for your call. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Advise me to go up as a madam in the studio. UPND single ruling 5 years. UPND to 10 kwenda kusokora, not 5 years. Because he says a manage. Mwana basegura my minds. I mean, I can go segura PF. For education. Each instrument to the 5 years. Tufuna 10 years kwenda kusokora. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that contribution, Frederick from Chawama. Hello. Good evening.
Hello?
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you, sir?
Very fine. Thank you, sir. What is your name and where are you calling us from?
Jeff, I'm calling you from Pemba.
Pemba. Your name is Jeff.
Yes, yes.
All right. Please go ahead.
Yeah, the madam, she's not telling us the truth. The Lingalato, which she's saying, happened in her party. Started before UPND became in power. After Tishimbakambwe left the party. That's what we know.
You know,
Okay.
like Kaviri.
All right. Is that all?
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello. Good evening.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm like, mwabomba pia bwino
I'm quite randa na banani kabiri wetu mina.
murianda na wa Ton B from Zimba.
Mr. Ton B, please go ahead, sir.
Ton B from Zimba. How is it bwino but as I said egani getako advise wa madam wabadi ko babaranda pia bwino sana. Naomba tokiro kwishiba. Bapange pia aransi na munduwire.
All right.
nga bali serious ukuteka kino ekyalo afire baita bapanga aransa mu ndobere.
All right.
Noti yako bakirimbi okukayite mwa nabapanga te aransi na mu ndobere amutoni bulera yo muzimba Ton B.
Ton B, thank you very much.
So the break ture mona ture kitakonze.
All right. Thank you very much.
The break ture mona we are Zambian.
Tatasha.
Today.
All right. That's Ton B. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. This is Sambe calling you from Kasempa town in northwestern province.
Mr. Sambe, we are grateful for your call. Please, we are with the president of, and also a new member of the CF Orange Alliance, Madam Saboi Imboela NDC president. Please go ahead.
She's my sister, so I love her as a musician. So, and I've been her fan since then.
Awesome.
Except that I choose to differ with their opinion at the moment. Because as much as I love her, as I follow her, that I think when it comes to the trajectory which they are taking, I've worked with Kalaba at Ministry of Land before we retired, so I worked with him very well. So I know him very well.
What don't you agree with regards what our guest is saying tonight?
You see, the challenge that I have with the opposition and the ruling parties, everyone would want to say that there is nothing that HH has done, or also saying that maybe HH has done everything. I think that's a challenge that I have myself.
All right.
If we are able to say with education here in the same path, at least we have in secondary school here. We have classrooms there that have been built. Here in Kasempa, we are talking about 180,000 plus as a grant that is being given to the school. One left when we were during this other regime, even 1,500 plus which was being given as a grant was never seen in the whole year. So you say that there is nothing that government has done. I think that is also not being fair. And it is from there, a person like me, who especially a fan to her, when she says on things like I see that there is no objectivity and then there is mediocrity in the opposition because they don't want to say the right thing.
All right.
Let them say what is wrong, what we have not done well, they say it, but what they have done well, they say this one. So that we are able to look at, how to account for whatever that they are saying and what they want to do.
Thank you very
much. For me, that's what I would say. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for your contribution. Madam President, so many calls. Unfortunately, our time has run out, but yeah, you can respond to some text messages as well as, the phone calls. The text messages, some were saying that there is something being done in the education sector, and it's not entirely true that there is no money because they're receiving grants.
Mr. Sambe, I think first and foremost, I did mention that free education was good. I did mention the issue of policy reversals, right? And I clearly said that in the past, the new governments would want to show that the previous ones did nothing. You get the point? And they would have policy reversal. And I did promise to build on the good things of the UPND. So meaning that I did acknowledge the fact that there's some good things that they have done. I get the point. So you can't create something and start arguing with his own conception of things instead of what it is that I said. I work in Northwestern Province more than any place in this country. Do you know that today, when you talk to a classroom full of grade 11s, 12s, and however, in Northwestern Province, you need an interpreter. They can't speak English. Okay? That's my area of work when it comes to the school programs that I do. And for this one, by the way, I don't just blame the UPND because somebody who's in grade 11, 12 now, it means that they were there. They started school before the UPND even came into office, okay? So if education was that bad in rural places, that you need an interpreter to talk to a grade 12 and 11, what of now when they have to stand in classes, when they are 80, okay, in class and everything? I was on one of the radio stations in Choma last week. Of course, I was talking from Lusaka, and they did mention from Choma to say what they're doing is that now in schools they've got shifts. They've got about 80 children in one class. They leave, another shift comes in. Right here in Lusaka, go to Shantumu Basic right now. I will challenge you. You find 150 children in one class, you know. You go to most of these rural places in Zambia, the highest you find 150, 200 in one class. So no matter how good you are as a teacher, you can be a super teacher, you can't teach. You can be a super learner, you fail to learn. What also people always forget in this country is that apart from being somebody who's passionate about education, I have been a lecturer at the high school institution of learning in this country, the University of Zambia. Even just when the first students come in, there's always a disaster in terms of the way they write, for example. You get the point? So I know the kind of education system and levels that this country is operating at because I deal with primary and secondary schools in the rural places and I've taught at universities, okay? And not just at UNZA, but also some private universities. So the first time that they bring their script, for example, it's normally a disaster. So you have to start teaching. So my job as a person, as a lecturer, is even to teach people how to write. Okay? And this is normally credited for having some of the best articles because they know in the party. There's some people who left NDC that at some point even hated me. I don't want to mention names. I was very strict with the way they write. Because that's my job. For me, when you give me something, I'll look at all the commas and full stops and everything which I've not put properly because naturally I'll observe that. Okay? So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the standard of education in this country, because I've taught at the highest institution of learning. So
we have to.
So to cut a long story short, everybody else is talking about education.
Yeah.
For me, education is personal, because to develop this country, we need to be serious about education. And I'll talk about education. UPND, kudos for free education, but please make it free from grade 1 to university and have good quality education, because that's the way to go for this country.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for having joined us on this platform. And we do hope that we can host you again. Alfred and I have got so many questions that would love you to ask, but as well, our viewers have so many questions. Obviously, you've answered quite a lot of questions tonight.
All right, so we are back on Monday at exactly 20 hours. From me, Alfred Chimba and Sedlitz and the entire production team here at Crown TV. Bye-bye and enjoy the rest of the evening. Good night.